Hey.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being patient. It wouldn't be a normal school day if we didn't have technical difficulties. So I see a few people in the waiting room. We're just gonna wait. Being patient. We're gonna wait for a few more people to join. All right, we have 3 classrooms. Oh, no, we have 2 classrooms. Happy Friday, everybody. Okay, so we can get started. I see a few rooms in here right now. So we have our last speaker for Engineers Week. We have Jessica Hua. Jessica, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Hope you're having a good Friday. My name is Jessica, and I'm a full-stack software engineer for Fidelity Investments. I grew up in Chicago, and I went to DePaul for college. And when I started college, I actually didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I didn't know that engineering was what I wanted my career to be. And I actually bounced around a couple of majors before I landed on computer science and ended up really enjoying it. And from there, I just got my degree in computer science with a concentration in software engineering. When I started my career, I started with Fidelity Investment, who I'm still working for right now. And the thing that I really liked about them and why I picked them as my first job is they had this program called the LEAP program, and it's basically a program for entry-level graduates. So for like the first couple of months, I was kind of in training or whatnot. So it was really nice because I got a good kind of like transition from school and into my first job. So I met a lot of cool people there. And I just like did training with them instead of jumping into a job right away. And then from there, you get placed into your everyday job. And I've been on 2 teams with the company now. Both of them I work full stack, which is pretty cool because I get to kind of do everything from designing what it looks like to the users to dealing with database and data in the back. So I get a little taste of everything, and I do a lot of internal automation, which is basically I'm helping everyone on their everyday jobs. So for example, if someone's like doing a very repetitive task, like they're generating a report every day, or they have to keep up with scheduling, I'm building like apps or like mobile applications and tools to have basically the computer do that, so they no longer have to do that themselves.
That's very cool. And is that like all coding?
Yeah, so it's all coding. And I said like I do a little bit of design too, since full stack, so which is really cool. So that's a matter of kind of like saying, oh, like how would the user interact with this application? Like, does it make sense to put the button here? Like, what information we want to put on the front page that is important? So stuff like that, we do like design and kind of collaborate and come up with those things as well as coding.
That's very cool. I know there's a lot of students at the school. We try to push a lot of coding here, but it's also like really important to know if something is user friendly, right? If you
Right.
push out to the masses, you want to know if it's easy to use.
Right. Like, yeah, good user experience design, the user shouldn't have to ask questions about where to find things or whatnot. They should be able to get to it themselves. So that's a lot of the stuff that we kind of take into consideration or whatnot too when designing. And of course, like I said, I do a lot of, I do the whole full stack. So I do the coding too for, all the logic that goes behind that. And then I like deal with a little bit of data as well in the database, and how to store like all the information the users are putting in and whatnot.
And making sure that's safe, right?
Yeah. Very important, especially since like everything is going digital these days. It's a big factor.
Definitely. So I know you said you didn't really know that you wanted to get into engineering. So like what sort of pushed you in this direction?
So I guess like on the back of my mind, I've always enjoyed coding. So I started coding at a pretty young age actually, and this was like around the time MySpace was still around. And for those who don't know what that is, it's social media. It's basically like Facebook, but it was super fancy back in the days where you can like come up with your own backgrounds and make your own designs for it. You can have like fancy fonts and backgrounds and graphics on your page. So it's basically Facebook. You just like message people and you talk to people, but you kind of got like to design your page a little. So that's when I started learning HTML, CSS, like the basics on just like how to design these layouts or whatnot, because I didn't like any one of the ones on the internet. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna learn and make it my own. But then like from there, I guess for me growing up, I think like engineering was just not on my radar because it wasn't presented to me as an option almost. I feel like growing up, like I knew like, people are like, oh, like they talk a lot about being doctors, lawyers, et cetera. But I didn't really like hear a lot about like engineering or what it even was and what it entails. So I felt like I didn't really know that that was an option for me at the time. So um, so since I had that background, I knew I enjoyed doing it, so I just couldn't envision myself. So when I got to college, I tried all these different majors that was in computer science and coding. But then like at the end of the day, I just kind of thought back, like I really did enjoy doing that. Let me like give this a try and see where it takes me. And I end up really loving it. It's something you can really be creative in. And I could see myself, getting a career in this and staying in it for a while because tech is just growing so fast these days. So it's like new languages are coming out, new things are coming out all the time. Technology is just advancing so fast. So it's really nice because like I keep learning, like even out of school, I'm learning every day. A lot of the stuff I did learn in school is kind of a basis for me, but like still like on my job every day, I'm like watching YouTube videos, tutorials and whatnot, and just like, learning how to do all these new like languages and coding these new languages and frameworks that are coming out. And yeah, I just like that. I get to keep learning, and it's a really, being in engineering, it's like you get to be creative. Like I said, you can like kind of build the app however you want it. It kind of combines like logic, and I get to kind of be creative. So that's why I kind of chose this career path.
Yeah, that seems like really interesting because I imagine if you're in a job that you have to do the same exact thing all the time, it gets stagnant and boring. And with this one, like if you're constantly learning new things and you're constantly growing, then it just seems like it will never get boring.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on the person because some people like the stagnant, like I know this and this is what my specialty is and I'm just gonna do this every day. But like for people like me, and if you enjoyed like, new challenges or whatnot, constant, tech is a great way to kind of get into that.
Has there been a challenge that took you a really long time to overcome? So like a stumbling block, whether that was in your college career or infidelity or any of the jobs that you've done, any of the apps that you've helped create?
Yeah, I think as I was starting off my career, I just didn't know how vast engineering and technology was and just coding in general. So like there's so many options, and when I was going through college, it's like they give you the basics, but you don't really get a taste of all of it, right? So I think my biggest like struggle coming into the workforce was just figuring out what I wanted to do and what my options were, which is why I kind of chose a full stack position, and I'm kind of glad I did because I get kind of a taste in everything. Like I get to work with data, I get to work on the front end, and from there I kind of figured out what I liked more and whatnot. So maybe like in my next job, I can kind of hone in on that a little more on what I want to do.
And just for clarification, for anybody who doesn't know what full stack is, could you just quickly tell us what that is?
Yeah, so it's just so it depends on your team and the company. Some people have for some positions it's a specific focus. So, for example, if you're just a UI UX engineer, you're working on the user interface and user experience. So you're still coding, but you're only dealing with dealing with what the user sees. So. And then you also have your middle tier, which is where all the logic and algorithm happens. So, for example, like if you punch something into Google, there's a lot of things that happen in the background that you don't see before all the search results come up. So there's a lot of people working on, how to get those results and whatnot too. And then before it gets displayed to you. And then the back end is just like where your data is, like where that data is stored or whatnot. So all those results you're seeing, that's stored somewhere out there in a data center. So it's just a matter of trying to figure out where to put that stuff. So with full stack, you kind of get to build the app from, the beginning to end. So you just kind of get a taste in everything.
All right, so we talked about a little bit of the struggle that you had right out of college. What's a success? What's a success that you have? What's the proudest thing that you've accomplished?
So recently I was able to develop an entire mobile application for like Android and iOS on my own in a language that I hadn't even learned, in college before. I had to learn it myself as I go. So I think that was really yeah, a success point for me. But I think, and I think it was such a success point in me too, because I felt like I went into technology kind of doubting if I was good enough to be in tech. And it's just kind of nice to see just how far I've come. Like came from like not really knowing what I was doing and asking a lot of questions to be able to kind of like build something on my own.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You built the whole thing, ground up. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I think one of the biggest thing too, it's like, I mean, it is competitive out there if you're like comparing yourself to, I know a lot of the Silicon Valley companies, like the tech giants like Google, Facebook, whatnot, they have like really high competition there. So I felt like for a while I was just kind of like comparing myself with them and like feeling like I wasn't good enough. But then at the end of the day, I just learned that the real competition is like with yourself and like reflecting and seeing how far you've came. So to be able to kind of like build something on my own, I'm just like, wow, this is pretty cool. And like I've grown a lot since I left college and took my first position.
Definitely. And you just touched on two really important habits of mine, right? So just having confidence in yourself is essential to success. And then being able, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, being able to ask for help when you don't know something because you want to gather all of that information. And I mean, right out of college, you don't have all of the information, but knowing who to ask is definitely something that's really important. Can you tell us what a day in the life is for you?
Yeah, so a lot of people think that I just sit in the dark and code all day as a software engineer, and that is not the case at all, actually. So I probably get like maybe max like four on an 8-hour workday. I probably get max like 4 hours of actual coding all day. Realistically, like a lot of your time is also spent collaborating just with your team members or other members in your company. Like I said, you spend time like designing and in meetings. You're not coding all the time. You're half of the time you're just planning on you're just in meetings to talk about how you're going to build it. It's kind of like if you're building uh, uh, like in construction, you're building a building, right? You just don't go ahead and you just don't do the construction work all the time. You like lay out all the blueprint and like stuff like that, and prioritizing what needs to go in first. What is just like just a pretty sign to have, and that's not as important. So I spend a lot of time in meetings just kind of figuring those stuff out, laying out the blueprints before I even get to actually coding it. And then a lot of the times I do spend just on debugging too, because when you code, it's nothing rarely works on the first time. So a lot of the time I'm really just like testing things, figuring out, where something went wrong and yeah, stuff like that. So it's a good mix in between, two things. That way you're just not staring at the computer all the time. You're also collaborating and whatnot. So and then, like, when you get some, quiet time, you just kind of sit there and, figure out the problem and code it out. So,
how has your job been affected by the pandemic?
so I think technology and engineering, well, in software engineering, anyways, it's all pretty remote, anyways. So I wasn't affected that much. I was working on a regular, non-pre, pandemic times. I think I was working from home like a day or two in a week already. So, it was a pretty easy transition for me to work from home and from going into the office every day. Um, I would say like it is hard. You do get more distractions at home, especially if you're at home, you have family around or like pets or whatnot. So I would say I did invest a lot in my office like this year, or just like a space for myself where I am kind of forced to focus. So that has been really helpful for me on just staying motivated and making sure I get what I need to get done.
I think that's something that we are all feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
To navigate that and figure out, okay, I need a space where I could just sit and focus for this hour or two has been a real struggle. And I know we're all feeling that. Yeah. We have a question from 7th grade. Ms. Baez's class wants to know how old you are.
I am 25.
25. All right, let's get into this next question. And if you want to start sending in your questions, you definitely can post them in the YouTube, send me a text message, a Google chat, and we will get to them. I know we talked a little bit about a few of the habits of mind, collaboration. We talked a little bit about communication, but can you tell me how the role of ethical considerations and maybe optimism play a role in your job?
Yeah, so with optimism, I feel like that's a really big one because, like I said, a lot of my time I spend is not just straight writing new code, spitting out new code all the time. I am kind of just in there trying to figure out why something isn't working and where it went wrong, and that's not always easy. A lot of coding is basically problem solving. It's like if you like puzzles, that's basically what it is. Like you have a problem and you're trying to get to, find a way to get to that solution in however, whatever you can. And along the way, you would like hit into bumps and stuff like, okay, this solution isn't working. I got to try something else. So with that, like you do get stuck and it does get frustrating. So I feel like optimism is very important, just to keep that in mind that it does happen and things get frustrating, but it's okay because you just ask for help if you can't get to it, and like you'll eventually figure it out. There's plenty of resources on the internet these days too, so you can kind of look there for help.
That's good. That's good advice. And in terms of advice, do you have any advice that you would give for our student body?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is to kind of just start like if this is something you want to do and if this sounds interesting to you, try to go and look at to see what the different options were. Because like I said, I felt like I didn't really know what my options were when I was, getting ready to get into my career already. So if I was I felt like I would have been set up for more success if, I knew a lot about, more about some of these things before I got to that point in life. So I would say, like, look, if this is interesting to you, like, there's plenty of resources out there. Just start Googling and just look at what's out there. Like, if you're more artsy, you like designing, maybe you would like doing, UI, UX, user experience work. That's an option. If you're more into math and like algorithms and logic, you could work on, like the middle tier and whatnot. There's like plenty of jobs surrounding that and whatnot. And like I said, if you like data, there's, stuff in there too. But I think like when I was starting my career, I didn't even I didn't understand like what, you know, what what a lot of these things were, and that I had options, and that tech was so like it's just such an umbrella field. Like there's so much you can do. There's also like IT and stuff too. I'm not really in that space, but if you like, configuring servers, messing with actual like hardware, like the physical like laptops and computers, if you like, working around that, like that's also an option. So I would just say just go exploring like whenever you could. And I think another great piece of advice is to get a mentor. When I was starting off, it was really nice because Fidelity had a mentor program, so they would match me up with someone that I could kind of bug for help or questions here and there, and not feel bad about nagging them all the time because they're supposed to be helping me because they're my mentor. So I felt like that was kind of really helpful for me to just get a running start on, picking up everything and learning everything. So
that's great. And I hope that the series also like shed some light on, some careers that are in the engineering field, and maybe like, a career that they didn't know about before. Also, in speaking about mentors, I know that our students are a little bit younger, but you all could ask your teachers, right? Like we are more than happy to help you look into these things if it's something that you're genuinely interested in.
Yeah.
We have a question from Ms. Champlin Dixon. This is from 8th grade. How hard is your job on a scale from 1 to 10?
I think that scale fluctuates day to day, actually. So I might like one of the things that I like about my job is that no 2 days look the same. Like I could be solving one problem one day and another problem one day. Some days I'm not even like coding or solving problems. I'm working on other things like documentation or like explaining to users like, oh, this is how you use this stuff. So I feel like I get the whole spectrum. So on days it is 10, like I said, when it's frustrating, I can't get to the answer. I'm Googling all and trying to watch all these tutorials and I can't get there. It is hard, but then there are other days where it's just easier to more lay back and they're one. So it's a toss between everything.
Never the same day twice.
Yeah. Keeps it interesting though, so.
Definitely. Like I think for me, I like that because I would never get bored. Like I like solving problems. I like puzzles. And to Ms. Tobias's point, like in STEM, we do give them puzzles to build their spatial reasoning skills. So if that's something that they enjoy, then maybe this career path is something for them.
Right.
And also from 8th grade, do you have any pet projects that you do?
I do have a blog. I guess it's not really exactly just like a straight, tech project. I know a lot of people in tech do have like side projects, but for me personally, I felt like I needed a creative outlet outside of work. So for me, I'm doing a lot of coding from my day to day for, for 8 hours a day for 40 hours a week already. So I did start a blog, and that's like kind of my little project where it's less about coding, but more of like just a creative a creative thing for me, and to just outside of work. And on there, I do talk a lot about tech actually. So if you guys do want to check it out, I do like it's just my name, so jessicahua.com. I do talk about a lot of tech and have like advice on there and whatnot. But I just like doing like the picture editing and the writing and whatnot, just like outside. And I think it's important to kind of have like, um, like a break from your day-to-day stuff and do like something else you enjoy.
Definitely. So I'm going to ask you two questions. I know your blog, does it focus on like what, I know you said it doesn't focus really on your job per se, but do you talk a lot about women in STEM?
I do have some, I think do have some resources out there for women in STEM and whatnot. I know I talk about women in STEM more on my Instagram, and I'm working on trying to get more of that onto my blog. But yeah, so I do talk around tech topics around that little project.
Nice. Two more questions from eighth grade. Eighth grade is on fire. What was the hardest thing that you've ever had to do in your job?
The hardest thing, I think a lot of the hardest thing I had to do was just not the actual coding itself, but just trying to figure out how to problem solve my on my own, if that makes sense. So it's like like a lot, I think figuring out how to get to the solution. Like I said, there's a lot of resources out there. I am Googling on a daily basis. And sometimes I'm Googling things like I should know already, but you can't really remember everything, and that's fine. So I think the hardest part about it is just doing the learning and like trying to figure out how to get to the resources I need to get. So a lot of the times, like I said, I spend like watching tutorials and whatnot to try to like figure out the answer. But like sometimes I would just watch a video and I'm like, oh no, that was a waste. Like that didn't tell me what I needed to know. So like in a sense, like that's kind of really hard. But like I said, like it's also really helpful and important to like if you're stuck on something, just like sometimes it's faster to just ask. Like and a lot of the people on my team are like super helpful and like welcoming, and it's like not scary at all to like ask questions, and it's okay if you don't know something because everyone in tech is kind of like the same. Like you're good at some stuff, but like not everyone can be good at everything. So.
Right. And then, Jessica, what's your favorite ice cream?
My favorite ice cream. I don't know if I have a specific like flavor. I love ice cream, so I don't really know how to pick a specific flavor, but I do love Jenny's ice cream, if you guys have heard of it. Jenny's ice cream is my favorite, and they have I think brown butter almond brittle from there is my absolute favorite.
That sounds delicious. I've never had Jenny's because there's always a line in front.
There is, especially with the summer months rolling out, but they do sell it in pints too at the grocery store. I know Mariano's has it. I don't know if any other ones. I usually pick up at Mariano's, but if you want to check the Mariano's aisle, they do have Jenny's ice cream.
Definitely. And then more questions from eighth grade. What's your favorite food and what's your favorite color?
I think this is biased. So my parents are Vietnamese. I grew up Vietnamese, and I think Vietnamese food is my favorite. I think like nothing beats kind of like a home cooked meal from your parents. So that's my favorite food. And favorite color, I would say pink and black are tied for my two favorite colors.
Very nice. All right, we're going to keep this open for a few more questions. Teachers, if you have any, or if your students have any questions, please send them to us. If not, we're going to start wrapping up.
Yeah. So I guess while I wait for a couple more questions to roll in, I think you mentioned women in engineering, like briefly, and so for those who didn't know, like technology and engineering is a very male-dominated field. So it is sometimes it is intimidating as a woman to be in that field, and I think that it's normal to feel that way, but I don't think that should stop you from trying to pursue engineering because it's really cool and it actually empowers you a lot to be able to say like, hey, like an underrepresented, group in my field, but look at all the amazing things like I could do. So
I love that. So we got a question from Miss Mazzari's 7th grade class. Did you have more choices before you started this career? Or is it, I know we talked a little bit about this, or is it specifically something that you wanted to get into?
I'm not exactly sure what exactly that's referring, like my different majors, I guess. So like I said, I did bounce. Actually started off as a chemistry major and then hated it immediately after trying that out. And then I switched over to being into business major, and I didn't like that as well. So just coming out of college, I knew I wanted to be in technology. And I did enjoy coding for the classes that I got to code in. So I knew this is what I wanted to do. I wanted a job that required me to code. But if you wanted to pursue technology and engineering and not code, that is also an option. So there are project management is a big one within tech. So that requires you to still know a little bit, like know the basics about tech, know how everything works or whatnot. Know enough about the project to know the foundation of the project, but not exactly code. So that way you can manage the project. So that's also an option. It wasn't something I was looking into personally when I was looking for a job, but know that there are like different options.
Great. This is another question from 8th grade. Do you enjoy video games? And if so, what is your favorite one?
I actually don't play a lot of video games at all. I didn't grow up playing it, so I think I just never got really into it. But because of the pandemic last year, I did pick up the Nintendo Switch and picked up Animal Crossing and started playing that for a little bit. So
Nice. And then also, what kind of music do you like?
I think I like a little bit of everything, but I think my top genres would be rap and hip hop.
Love it.
But I kind of could play. It's just whatever I'm like grooving to that day too. I play a lot of music when I'm coding. I'm one of those people who does better focusing when there is music on. I know some people like to work in complete silence or like just like jazz music or whatever, but you'll find me like bumping to some rap music while I'm coding. So
I'm the same way. It helps me focus. All right, Camras, any other questions? Let me check all of my apps to see if I got any questions sent any other way. All right. Thank you for chatting with us, Jessica.
oh, anytime.
It's been great. All right, everybody. Happy Friday. Have a fantastic spring break. And bye, Jessica.
Bye.
It's always so awkward to end these things.